By the time that people become aware of the true purpose of the group, they've undergone some sort of extreme persuasion program and therefore no longer are thinking critically, no longer have the wherewithal to extract them from the group.
Lori Ryan.
Vallow, seen in this recently unearthed video, competing for Mrs. Texas in 2004, facing possible extradition to Idaho and criminal charges related to the disappearance of her children last September.
Like, I'm now starting to see that I Mormoned wrong. My brother and I joke about that. He has also left the church in the last year. But we joke about how our sisters seem to be able to Mormon right. There's some flexibility, they can be nuanced, they make it work for them. But we were so black and white and rigid in our thinking, and I was so in this group of righteous obsession.
Now, some have referred to Lori and her new husband, Chad Daybell, as the doomsday couple. Kim Powell's been on this story since the very beginning, and you spoke to an ASU professor who specializes in cults and their kind of practices.
For 2 decades, Chad Daybell wrote books about his near-death experiences, saying he's had spiritual revelations. Family says Lori Vallow started reading his books and attending his seminars years ago. Chad and Lori got married in late 2019, only after their previous spouses both suspiciously passed away. In court paperwork filed 1 year ago, Lori's previous husband, Charles, stated Lori became infatuated and at times obsessed with near-death experiences and spiritual visions. She told Charles she was a god and has lived several lives and is now a translated being sent by God to lead 144,000 chosen people into the new millennium.
When you put a couple of people together with that sort of mindset, it can create a synergy.
Dr. Linda DeMaine has taught a cult and religions class at ASU for 12 years.
When somebody is claiming to be a god, like a deity, or a messenger of a deity, we're going to place great credence in what they have to say if we're a believer.
It's the question that many people have been asking. What happened to JJ and Tylee?
Investigators in Arizona, Idaho, and Hawaii are working to find an answer. Police ordered their mother, Lori Vallow, to prove the kids were alive, but that didn't happen and no arrests were made. So now what?
Did you do something to your children? Are your children still alive?
It's the question on everyone's mind ever since JJ and Tylee disappeared back in September.
They're good kids. They don't deserve this.
On Wednesday, JJ's grandparents were in court to try and get custody of their missing grandson, as the child's mother was all the way in Hawaii, seemingly with no kids.
They've been missing for 4 months. You have nothing to say?
And while the fight to find these children has seemingly stalled, investigators are still searching for answers in the mysterious deaths surrounding Lori Vallow and her new husband, Chad Daybell, starting with Tammy Daybell, whose body has now been exhumed.
Someone is buried, they are embalmed, and so the entire system is flushed.
Tammy's death was initially thought to be of natural causes just weeks before Chad married Lori Vallow. Now, Tammy's death is considered suspicious as investigators look for any signs of foul play.
If we don't know what we're looking for, the possibility is endless. People can be poisoned with rat poison, or it can be some form of a fluid for your vehicle. It could be an antifreeze. It could be, there's all kinds of things.
And on Lori's side, 2 deaths are still under investigation, starting with her husband, Charles Vallow, who was allegedly killed in self-defense by Lori's brother, Alex.
There were several people present. To my knowledge, those people are all missing or dead.
Then, this past December,
911, where is your emergency?
Her brother Alex also found unresponsive.
He's not breathing.
Both deaths still under investigation, as questions remain: where are JJ and Tylee?
Are your children still alive?
She told him that she was a god, she was a translated being, that she was there to save 144,000 people for the second coming of Christ in July 22nd of 2020.
144,000 people. Lori's ex-husband backs that number up in their divorce papers in early 2019.
She brought up all these people that were part of this podcast group that she also was a part of. And when she's describing some of their doctrine and describing some of their beliefs, it was just too much to even get my mind around.
That group is called Preparing a People. Preparing a People hosts workshops, mostly in Idaho and Arizona, filled with speakers who blend parts of the Mormon religion, pseudoscience, and doomsday prepping.
I hope there is justice, and I hope the children are found.
And another twist. A court document alleging Vallo's niece, Melanie Boudreau, knows where Tylee and JJ are, but is refusing to cooperate with police. In the document, filed as part of an ongoing custody battle, Melanie's ex-husband, Brandon, seen here in this photo, also alleges Boudreau is involved in a cult where numerous members, adults and children alike, have been being killed off like flies. Police say they searched Boudreau's residence, located right next door to Vallo's home in this Idaho apartment complex back in November, as part of their investigation.
Dad, Lori, can you tell me where your kids are?
For months, questions have swirled about Vallo's alleged involvement in her children's disappearance. Police say the 46-year-old lied to them about JJ's whereabouts when they conducted a welfare check last fall, and that she and Daybell left town the next day, fleeing to Hawaii, where she was arrested last Thursday.
Chad Daybell wrote a lot of books, most with the same general concept. The United States will soon collapse, and a chosen few believers will be the ones to save it and put it back together. But Lori Vallo's friends say she took it much farther than that.
The basis seemed to be preparing for the end of times, and they believed that they were part of the 144,000.
And the reason Lori Vallo went to Hawaii was to save her.
They were here to gather the other members to join them. And she had told me that she was there because I was one of the 144,000 and she was there to gather me. And I just said, I think I'm not, I'm just not.
Trent Price says he and Chad Daybell were missionaries together 30 years ago and have stayed in touch over the years.
He was one of the best of us. You know, we were a pretty solid group, but he was amazing.
Price describes Daybell as a gentle giant and someone with a deep sense of spirituality that people were drawn to.
I had a great mission. I just felt like his was extraordinary, and like it was one that we all admire.
But things have changed. Price says he can't ignore what's happened over the past couple of months, starting with Tammy Daybell's suspicious death last October to his new wife, Lori Vallo, who's in jail because she won't tell authorities where her two missing kids are.
I'm concerned for my friend. I don't know how this is all going to play out.
I mean, imagine what you would do if you had a God speak to you. You know, you would start feeling a little bit empowered, and it looks like that's exactly what happened. It's like, why would you stay in this mess of reality if the next life is better? Just...
Is this issue involved in this case?
I think it is. And that's why I'm really afraid for Lori's kids. I like to think that they're on some kind of compound in a bunker somewhere, hunkered down safe, but it doesn't look that way.
This morning, investigators looking for clues in this surveillance video from an Idaho storage facility where Lori Vallo rented a unit. Video obtained by East Idaho News reportedly showing Vallo and several others making numerous trips to the facility in October and November, around the time her children were reported missing, carrying large items in and out of the locker. According to East Idaho News, police obtained a search warrant for Vallo's home and the storage unit, finding children's bikes, photo albums, blankets, and clothing in the unit.
Can you tell me where your kids are?
It's been 1 week since Vallo ignored a deadline to physically produce her children, failing to bring 17-year-old Tylee Ryan and 7-year-old JJ to authorities. The kids have been missing since September. Vallo and her new husband Chad Daybell fleeing Idaho, heading to Hawaii 1 day after authorities performed a welfare check looking for the kids.
Where are your kids? No comment? They've been missing for 4 months. You have nothing to say?
Vallo married Daybell last year, just days after his wife died, and 3 months after her husband was shot to death by her brother. Police are now investigating the death of Daybell's former wife.
Particles of light were coming towards my body and latching on to me.
Daybell has written religious books and given speeches about what he describes as 2 near-death experiences. Those close to Vallo have said that her behavior has changed in the past year.
Ever since she's been involved in this doomsday cult, that is not the same Lori that we knew for 13 years. and the last year has just been none understandable.
Vallow's oldest son, Colby, still pleading with his mom for answers about his siblings.
I feel like my mom would die for the kids. So to see this and hear it, and also be questioning why they're not being found, that's where all this comes into, like a battle between what you think and what you feel.
But thoughts started coming to my mind, and he would answer my thoughts. And Psalms 139:2 says he answers our thoughts afar off. I thought, Lord, why'd you send me to this horrible place? He said, because many people do not believe hell exists. He said, even some of my own people do not believe hell is real. Now that statement surprised me because I thought all Christians believe in hell. But I found out since many Christians don't believe in hell. They say, Bill, God's a loving God. There's nobody in hell suffering. They believe in annihilationism, which I explained to you, or universalism, which is a false teaching that's going around saying that everybody gets saved. Or soul sleep, that you just fall asleep. That's not true. Hell is real, it's permanent, it's eternal, and God doesn't want one person to go there. That's why he died on the cross, was to keep us out. I thought, Lord, why did those demons hate me so much? He said, because you're made in my image and they hate me. See, John 15:18, Jesus said they hated me before they hated you. That's why Jesus said in John 10:10, the thief comes to kill, steal, and destroy. But he said, I have come that you might have life and have it more abundantly. You see, so the evil we see in life, the destruction, comes from the demonic realm, not from God. We serve a good and a loving God. He came to give us life. So when you see sickness and disease and poverty and all that, that all comes from the demonic realm. That's not from God. People falsely accuse God, blame him for all kinds of things. They get angry with God when they see someone get sick and die. They think it's God's fault. No, that was the devil's fault. He's the one that caused the sickness, not God. But you still might not be convinced. You might be like a radio talk show host that I was on with across America. A lot of people are still not convinced with the good. They still have trouble with thinking, man, I'm a good person. How can God let me suffer in hell? Or let someone that is a good person, takes care of their family. Well, let me explain something. Besides you not being good enough, none of us are, this analogy might help you. I was on this radio show and he says, don't you quote me one Bible verse over my airwaves, Christian. You got that? No Bible verses. I said, okay, no problem. He said, I submit to you that your God is unreasonable because he doesn't consider my viewpoint. I'm a good person, and my viewpoint is just as valid as yours, and if your God doesn't let me into heaven, he's actually guilty of a hate crime. And your God should be arrested and thrown in jail. That's what I think of your God. So what do you got to say for yourself, Christian? Well, what do you say? You're alive. And God gave me an analogy. Thank God. I said, okay, you think you need to be a good person. Let me explain. I said, say you went and found the most expensive home in the country and you knocked on their door. And you said, excuse me, I'm moving in with you because I'm a good person. What do you think the people would say? No, right? They don't know you. You have no relationship with them. Well, the same way, I said, you go through your whole life. You have nothing to do with God. You deny Jesus as the Son of God, which he said is the only way to his house. Then at the end of your life, you come and knock on his door, demand to live there because you're a good person. What does good have to do with it? You don't know him. You have no relationship with him. You might say, Bill, come on, I'm a good person. I'm not going to go to this horrible place. How can a loving God let a good person go to hell? But let me explain something. You might be pretty good compared to people. But if you're going to go by that standard, you want God to judge you whether you were good enough, then he'll go by that standard. But see, his standard is different than yours and mine. His standard is perfect. See, James 2:10 says, if we offend his law in one point, we're guilty of all. If we lie once, Revelation 21:8 says that all liars shall have their part in the lake of fire. If we steal one thing, 1 Corinthians 6:9 says, no thief will inherit heaven. If we have one lustful thought, Jesus said in Matthew 5, that's the same as committing adultery. No adulterer will inherit heaven. One lustful thought, just one. And Proverbs 24:9 says, even the thought of foolishness is a sin. If we have one foolish thought our whole life, that would exclude us from heaven. That's a pretty high standard, isn't it? So none of us can stand before a holy God and say, hey, I'm pretty good, let me in. He's going to say, no, not according to my standard, you're not good. Matter of fact, Job 15:16 says, man is so filthy, he drinks iniquity like water. So in God's sight, we are filthy rags. Thank God it's not based on being good, because not one of us would be there. It's based on a relationship with Jesus Christ. But see, our sin is punishable by death, right? We sin. We all sin in life. That deserves punishment. And the Bible says is deserving of death. But Jesus paid that price for us on the cross. He died in our place. So we wouldn't have to take the punishment. He would say them weeping. But because he loves man, he gives us that free will to choose. He doesn't force you into anything. Do you believe his word or don't you? It's up to you. So my question for you is, do you know if your name is written in his book? You have to be certain of this one, people. Please don't make a mistake with this. Because your soul is eternal, whether you believe it or not, you will spend your eternity in one place or the other. And you're going to hear next week about heaven. You much rather spend it there than hell.